Hi folks, it's Monday, and that means more hobby nightmares are on the way. And one of them, I've been told, is sure to get my hackles up. So we will see. It is a role-playing one about Dark Heresy. We've not had one of those for a while. First of all, if you like what I do here on the channel, then please make sure you go over to Composite Games this holiday season to get any of the games that you need. My video the other day on what Games Workshop are currently doing to the friendly local game store is currently, making the rounds, and so I'd like to make sure that if you have one near you, you're looking after them this holiday season, making sure that they have money, making sure that they can keep the doors open. Composite Games is no different. If you like to get any sort of models and things like that, and you like a good discount, then use the promo code Northern Exile down below to get yourself 5% off at checkout. That is added on to the 20% discount that you already get. That's a 25% discount. That's half of the GW stock trade discount. Go and get it. It's down below. Have fun. Anyway, let's read some Hobby Nightmares, shall we? Now that I'm done reading off that page, because it really does. It makes me stutter, because I've got to get through it so quickly. 1 second. Bit of tea to settle the voice. Wild Alaskan says, this is the first nightmare we've had from Wild Alaskan in quite a while. He says, hello again, fellow exiled northerner. One of your recent nightmares jogged my memory, and I remembered this story. Early on in my friendly local game store managing career, I met Mike and Ryan, two avid 40k players who had been friends since they were youngsters and who were instrumental in getting me interested in Warhammer 40,000. They would regularly stop by the store for games or purchases, and on one such evening, they brought a couple of guests with them. The first, who I shall refer to as John, was a long-time mutual friend of theirs, who had expressed some interest in the lore and in potentially learning the game. The second guest, Sarah, was also a long-time mutual friend, who moved away after graduating high school and had returned for a week or so to visit family. With introductions made, I returned to my painting table and Mike and Ryan began setting up for their game. John listened as they explained what they were doing, and Sarah meandered around the store looking at posters on the wall and the products in the retail side of the store. Excellent. Okie dokie. Let me just do that. Okay, next page. As the game began, two things quickly became apparent to me. Sarah was not at all interested in the hobby, and John was more interested in Sarah than in the game. That's always a good combination. The more bored Sarah looked, the less John paid attention to the gaming table. At one point, I got up from my painting to help a customer who had walked in, and while I was speaking to him, John and Sarah just left. That's fair enough. If they don't like it, they can leave. When I became free again, I asked Mike and Ryan where their guests had gone. Sarah wanted to walk to a nearby friend's house to hang out for a bit, and John had decided to go with her. Mike and Ryan had given them an estimate as to how long their game would take so they could be back in time for the ride home, and carried on with the game. As I recall, they hadn't even made it to turn 2 at that point. A little over an hour later, John and Sarah stumbled back into the store together, both obviously highly intoxicated. John seemed like he was handling himself reasonably well, but Sarah was a bit of a mess. She was so drunk she could barely stand, and it made me wonder how she'd managed to make the trip back from her friend's house. I was just about to have a quiet word with Mike and Ryan, as there was a policy against being intoxicated in the store. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. Where there was a crash from up front. Sarah had drunkenly stumbled into one of the product displays, sending both herself and the display crashing to the floor. Before I could say anything, Mike and Ryan dropped what they were doing and rushed over. They picked Sarah up, quickly checked her for injuries, and escorted both her and John outside to the car. Mike rushed back to help me pick up the display, apologising profusely for their guests' poor behaviour. Ryan stayed outside for a moment, scolding the two of them, before he too came back inside. They packed up their models, put all the terrain away, and apologised again before leaving. Mike and Ryan continued coming to the store for several years later, though curiously, they never invited John to come with them again. Yeah, okay. So, this is something that I've seen happen with friends in the past. When a woman comes along, some guys just need to learn some hard lessons in life. And if they don't learn them, then it's up to you to make sure that they learn them. I've lost many a friend by simply telling them to stop simping for women. Like, You know, because they've not had the strength to take that on board and be like, yeah, you know what, I shouldn't abandon my friends for a skirt. I just shouldn't, right? I'm not appalled by this behaviour, because it's freakishly normal. For all of you guys out there who say, oh, I would never do that to a friend, nah, mate, you've never had a woman throw themselves at you and then withdraw their interest at the slightest hint that you're not going along with what she says. The manipulation can be strong with some of them. That just is what it is. It literally just is what it is. Some women are more than adept of giving you a hint that you might be in there, that you might be able to go home with her, that you might be able to get with her and actually be in a relationship with her, only to take that away the second you go against any of their stupid, ridiculous opinions. I've had arguments with friends who don't know anything about my field of study, right? Because the girl that they brought seemed to disagree with me in my own field of study. They've never read anything about ancient history, they've never done anything about ancient history, they've seen the movie 300 and now think that they're an ancient historian. And I don't go after people. Like, listen, like, if you got into it because of Gladiator or 300, mate, that happened to me too. And I celebrate that. That's awesome. Let's talk about the movie. But if I'm asked the question, basically what happened was, I was asked a question by a third party on another table about ancient history because I was talking about it to my friend. And I answered that question. To which said girl then disagreed with me because it was about the Battle of Thermopylae when I was saying the Spartans were not the only ones there, you know, and they weren't the only ones there all the way up until the end, where they decided to stay behind. Not because they literally couldn't get away, essentially. That's what we now know. They literally, half the time, they couldn't get away. So they stayed there and basically fought until they died, which is great. But there were other people like the Acadians, they were there right up until the end, and quite a lot of people from different Greek city-states stayed with the Spartans. They didn't leave. She wasn't happy with that, because she'd seen 300, so she decided to go spouting on nonsense about ancient history that she doesn't know anything about. And I told her so. I was very polite with her. I said, no, I respectfully disagree. You know, these three scholars say, you know, and I was reading off names off the top of my head of different arguments that I've read over the years from archaeological digs and different things that we have, even by the Spartans, when they've told us what went on. And she wasn't happy with that as well. My friend agreed with her. And in front of both of them, I just said, mate, you need to stop simping and just realise, when I know what I'm talking about, this woman doesn't. Right? Just isn't. Anyway, she got off and left, and he started, like, really having a go at me, like, saying, look, you know, there was no need for that, you've ruined my chances. And I was like, mate, she was never going to sleep with you. She was here for attention. She was never going to sleep with you. Because the body language was there. She spent the entire evening back to him, looking at another table with some guys on it. Like, mate, she was never going to sleep with you. It was never going to happen. He took that the wrong way, as you would think, and, you know, we didn't speak for a little while. But this is what happens all the time. Now, this is a very short story by Wild Alaskan, but it does show the toxicity that can come into your friend groups when a woman of ill repute joins the friend group and gets her claws into one of your friends. Now, are most women like this? No, of course not. Right? I have more really cool stories about really cool women that my friends have met that I've gone on to be friends with than women like this. But when one of these does come along, just self-police your group, you know. Tell them to piss off. Get them in the sea. Torlov says, Hi North, I wanted to tell you how positive your channel has been for me, especially when it comes to self-confidence. I listened to your videos when building my Black Templars. I read Hell's Reach and fell in love with that chapter. Awesome. Your attitude towards how men should act and behave is something I agree with 100%. This being taking care of yourself, and you being the prize, etc. I want to quickly bring up how it is going with her. Yes, it's the woman I like. Okay, yes, because Torlov wrote in a little while ago, I think, describing how he was trying to woo a lady, woo a lovely lady that was in his life. Let's read on, shall we? He says, our history is quite interesting. We've known each other since, through what it says on the internet, lower and upper secondary school. It's called something different in Swedish, so I'm trying to make it easier. No problem. And for somebody whose English isn't his first language, this is a really good, well-written email. I've always quite liked her, frankly. She is kind, loves animals, has a pretty effed up sense of humour, and I'm just generally happy when I see her. She is, of course, also very pretty. However, I was quite shy, a lad back then. Lacked good self-confidence, and things never really went anywhere. However, We are really good friends and still know each other to this day. About 6 or 7 months ago, I decided to say, fuck it. I'm going to at least try. I was fully aware of the task ahead of me was a difficult one. Friendships that last a good solid 6 or 7 years are solid and can be tough to advance into something else. Yeah. That is a prime friend zone material there, man. I'm hoping there's some hobby in here somewhere, but if there isn't, then fair enough. But God made me stubborn, and so I was going to try anyway. My self-confidence has improved massively. I have my fantastic friends by my side, especially you, Greek man. I hope that doesn't mean me, dude. I'm not Greek. And the gym just does so many wonders too. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. I need to get back there. I've not been back in a few weeks. I've been really, really bad. It's been really busy. So far, things are going great, I think. We have been to dinner together and even went to a gallop together. A gallop? Okay, fair enough. You got horses. Usually when I ask her to go out, the response is like, more or less, maybe, or we'll see. Then around 4 days before, she says, yes, anyway. I don't really understand this, and I don't really understand what she means. Maybe you do. Maybe it's just women being women. The weekend, we are also having an outing together and later dinner. Okay, before I go any further, man, this is going to sound rude and crass, but have you made the move yet? Because as far as I'm concerned, you're not advancing out of the friend zone. You're becoming she's becoming a more expensive friend at the moment. You know, there needs to be some advancement here, but let me move on. So things are going very decently so far, considering how many times I've shown up where she could have said no, even in the friend zone kind of way. And a small update also, she finally said yes directly just now. So next month we're watching a movie at the cinema. I'll try and finish up here. Might try and get her into the hobby. Oh, there's the hobby with the new Rough Rider, since I'm probably going to buy them anyway. Okay, so the rest of it is just saying thank you for being doing the channel. I will say, man, I have to say, this needs to be advanced sooner rather than later. This is getting to the point where you've gone from just being a friend to being a friend who takes her out to do expensive things. Do not put it past the women to take advantage of such a situation. Not all of them are nice. In fact, quite a lot of them will let you take them out and spend money on them and never give you anything in terms of going out with them or doing anything with them, right? There was a really cool thing before that I saw online. There was like a video that I saw which I really took to heart. I thought that's a really good way of explaining it. There's a guy standing up, and I will get to the hobby in a minute. That my last hobby horror story is a big one, but I just wanted to put this out there before I do anything. One, don't get this woman into the hobby straight away. You don't know her. It sounds to me like you're friends and you're trying to get your way in there by being a gentleman and take her out and doing things. There comes a time, man, where you need to put your dickhead pants on and be a bit of an arsehole. There comes a time where you need to make a move, and if she's not interested, then drop her like a ton of bricks. She's like, okay, see ya. See ya. Bye. Goodbye. Don't need you. Why? Because I'm spending all this money taking you out. You're not interested in me. I need to find someone who's interested in me because I want to be with somebody. I'm ready for a relationship. You're clearly not. You want to play the game. All right, see ya. Bye. Good. Bye. Bye. Gone. Right, that's all you need to do. Just be honest. Just be upfront and honest. Try and kiss her. Try and do something. Try and move it past being friends. Because for what I've seen here, you've not done that yet. Do not try and get this girl into the hobby first thing. You will kill any chance that you have with her. I love the hobby, but if you're in the friend zone, man, the only way you can be more in the friend zone is if you introduce her to your little plastic toy soldiers. Right? Make sure she's a cool chick. You know, get to a certain base with her. Make sure that she's romantically interested in you, that she's giving you something to keep you coming back, and then eventually bring her into the hobby that way. Don't just do it cold turkey. She will run 1,000 miles. The video that I saw in question was a group of women sitting in a conference hall with a guy on a stage basically talking to them about how to go about getting a decent man. To which one girl said, well, you know, he wants me to pay for like half of things, and I think that's kind of cheap of him, you know, I don't like that, I don't find it very sexy. And he said to her, well, listen, if I go out with a woman and I pay for everything, the first date, right, I'm expecting something from her in terms of a kiss or even something more at the end of a date. And the whole room went, oh, how dare you? How dare you? And he said, well, hang on just a second. Do you believe that your partner should also be your best friend? To which every woman in the room nodded and said, yes, we do. Okay, I'm going to tell you something. If I take my best friend out for a meal, right? Or if I go out with my best friend for a meal, he's not going to expect me to pay for everything all of the time. Because he's my best friend, and he values me and my time. So why the hell should you get away with it? Why the hell should you be able to expect all this stuff from me? Oh, because I might be getting sex at the end of it. Right. So what you're saying is that, you know, you just want all of the good, none of the... You know, you don't want to put in any of the effort. And the guy won around this room of women. Because he approached it with logic and said, look, you all are best friends. Do you let them pay for everything when you go out? Of course you don't. So why would you do it with a man? Oh, I see. Yes, because you might give him sex at the end of the night. Right, so why were you just confused and shocked when I said you owe him sex if he pays for everything? Annihilate them with logic, guys. That's all you need to do. But again, do not go any further with this woman until you've ascertained whether she's actually interested in you romantically or not. Alright? Good. Right. Alex Supreme, let's get back to the hobby. My god. This is why, like, every now and again there's one that's not vetted that sneaks into the pile, and I need to, like, I need to start rereading these a lot more, because I make these lists weeks in advance, and I come back to them. Anyway. Alex Supreme says, hi North, Alex here, and I just wanted to regale you with a story of a Dark Heresy campaign I played that was completely off the rails. It was a doozy, but firstly, thank you for all you do on the channel and getting me through making meals in the evening for me and the missus. It means a lot to me, to more people than you know. Alright, here we go. Right, well, thank you very much. So, a few years ago, I asked around my local game store for 40k players who wanted to try their hand at role-playing, whilst using a technique to establish the grimdark setting that I'd seen online. Essentially, I did this establishment technique with a twist. I had 3 players, James, Johan and Neil, who were all super into 40k and the setting as a whole. I asked them to create characters that were a part of the Imperial Guard, and that they would be fighting on a world on behalf of the Mechanicus of Mars against Tyranids. No biggie, right? Well, in the first session of our campaign, I took their lovingly crafted characters and pulled no punches, killing them mercilessly with the Tyranid swarm when they didn't expect the danger of the situations that they were in to be actually that bad. They were kind of shocked. Neil, who was a D&D player, was visibly taken aback that I actually went through with my threats. I told them not to worry, but that the theme of this campaign was to get their characters to survive and earn the right to be the main characters of the coming RPG campaign. They accepted the challenge and came back the next week ready to run the Tyranid Gauntlet. That's cool, man. That's cool, and very 40k. 8 weeks passed as their characters fell one by one, and the miserable advance of the Tyranids seemingly knew no bounds. I could see the camaraderie growing around the table, though. They were becoming well-oiled as a team, and were taking down larger and larger Tyranid bioforms before finally hitting the dust and being consumed. On their 9th week, the characters, who had survived the last session, made their way into a xenomorph-like corrupted Mechanicus complex, where they found something that floored them. Their original characters, the first ones to die in the first session, were in stasis before their very eyes. It was revealed that the Mechanicus had implanted a lot of soldiers with a hive mind-like implant that allows them to be controlled by the soldiers in these pods. The soldiers were recognised for their original bravery and so were selected for this treatment. They have died agonising deaths over and over again in the name of the Omnissiah. Before anything can be explained further, an inquisitorial team lands and annihilates the Mechanicus forces and the player characters. The radical Ordo Xenos Inquisitor, Rael Sauron, takes one look at this research and says something that is a testament to, wow, neato, in High Gothic, before ordering the pods with the original characters inside to be placed aboard his ship. Awesome. In the next session, we see the characters thawed out of stasis, and the party are now playing their original beloved characters they thought were lost all those weeks and months ago. But now, they are playing with them with a much greater respect for how deadly a setting 40k and this game is for characters like these. Not only that, but the characters and the players are now essentially the same people who have lived the same experiences on a meta level. Also, they are beholden to Rael Sauron for their lives, which gives them a reason to work as his henchmen so that he does not space them all at the slightest inconvenience. Finally, this is a group with a shared hive mind. They act like RPG characters in a party because this is literally how their powers work. The lads were ecstatic, and so was I. This was going to be amazing. Dude, that is such a cool way to set up an RPG campaign in a meta way. So that they're literally playing RPG characters because their characters were also literally playing RPG characters. That's awesome. I love that. It just shows the scope of 40k though, that you can get away and do shit like this and actually have it work in the setting. That's the true strength of 40k. That's how malleable and cool it is in a setting. Anyway, let's get on to it, shall we? That's when Teresa and Tim showed up. These were two folks from the gaming store that were pretty alright. They were also mean Magic the Gathering players and had showed me the ropes there. So this was me returning the favour when they asked to do some role-playing in 40k. They told me though that they had years of experience playing D&D and were avid fans of Critical Role. Oh god, here we go. You can see where this is going. Listen, I get this a lot, like, why do you hate Critical Role so much? I don't. If you like Critical Role, all power to you. I just don't think it's a good representation of what role-playing is, because they are paid professional voice actors, and I think they spread an unrealistic expectation of what role-playing actually is, and they steal a lot of the magic away from role-playing for people who've never done it before. Also, a lot of their writing, a lot of their characters are annoying as fuck, but we'll get into that another time. Alright, but I want to tell you how my favourite campaign was derailed, and then put back onto the rails by 40k itself as a setting. So the setting itself put the campaign back on the rails. You'll see how we did that in a minute. In Dark Heresy, I like to not roleplay the big guys. In fact, I have a large database of actions a head honcho can perform. I simply roll for them in context. For instance, if Inquisitor Rael is confronted with a sect of demons on a world, I roll on a table that adjudicates what he could do or order in that situation. Okay, what he could do or order somebody else to do in that situation, with higher numbers being more severe actions. All I do then is add a modifier or take one away should his personality already lean in one direction or the other. It keeps things fresh, keeps me on my toes when role-playing, and also helps those at the table feel like I am playing with them and not against them. Again, dude, that's a really cool technique. So that the main players of your campaign, they have like a... So what you've said here, because he's actually shown me a little chart, he has like a D10 system, where 10 is like the most severe thing that they can do in that situation, and 1 is the most mild thing that they can do in that situation. And he has about 50 of these that he set up for almost every different context that you could do, or what that character is going to be put in. That's cool, and it keeps him on his toes and it lets him roleplay. That's awesome, man. Awesome. That's an idea I might actually run with. It's a lot of work, but to set it up, but when it's done, boy, would that be fun. Now, let's talk about the party. The trio, James, Johan and Neil, were all Imperial Guardsmen from 3 different worlds. We had a Mordian, James. Mordian guys are the ones with like the lapels on and the really nice uniforms. A Katachan, Johan, basically the guy from Predator, the Marines from Predator. And a Guardsman from a player-made planet that was basically a Tempestus Scions in Neil. Okay, Tempestus Scions being like the ultra really cool jump pack and old school veteran guys. These were joined by 2 itinerant preachers in Teresa and Tim, who were a couple in and out of the game. This sounded really cool to me, and they seemed really up for the campaign. It turns out, however, that these 2 wanted to change the Imperium from within after reading about it in the lore. And I think you know the way I mean. In our first session, we had to stop the session to ascertain if the Agri world the party went to visit to investigate to find a demon host had laws in place that allowed same-sex marriage, I shit you not, and that allowed folks to change gender. You serious? When I rolled and affirmed... You rolled? Okay, fair enough. When I rolled and affirmed that they did not, this place was pretty backwards, quote-unquote, Teresa informed the party that she would be waiting on the ship and that this world didn't deserve saving. Okay. Tim awkwardly continued to roleplay with the guys whilst receiving daggers in real life from Teresa before finally he slunk back to the ship with his tail between his legs. Tempestus Scion shook his head at his back as he walked away, and the following conversation between the trio went like this. Tempestus Scion, that bloke is so pussy-whipped, mate. Kata-chan, you said it. I'm going to teach him to be an emperor-damned sexual tyrannosaurus. Just like me. The Mordian. Pardon me, chaps. What in the Emperor's name is a pussy? Or a Tyrannosaurus, for that matter? I love these three. I know that second line comes from Predator, but God bless you for using it. Absolutely cool, man. That's awesome. Every conversation these guys did was in this mode. Hilarious and in character, perfectly embodying the world that they came from and in flawless accents. I loved it. The party continued on their merry way to find the evidence they had come here to get, successfully navigating much of the world's criminal underworld and several dive bars to bring together, through bribery and simply shooting others, a loose alliance of criminals to raid the hideout of cultists who were hiding the demon host. Alright. The trio head on down and begin hammering through the cultists until the demon host makes his play, annihilating his way into existence through one of his subjects by possessing them and proceeding to wreck almost everybody in the compound. This is going pretty poorly. At the height of the battle, however, the skies darken and the party look up. Several Imperial war frigates who had accompanied them to the world are hanging and now in low orbit, their weapons powering on. James voxes up to the fleet, where he is told that Inquisitor Rail has ordered an exterminatus on the planet. The trio are confused, to say the least. They have the situation in hand, kind of, to which the fleet commander says the request came from Rail's own inquisitorial seal, the one the party had been given to bypass Imperial bureaucracy. Things started to click into place. Those buggers, the Mordian says. Let's cut to the other side, shall we? Teresa and Tim spent half an hour in the gunship of the party doing what I can only describe as the most over-the-top gymnastic-style love session I've ever heard described. Oh, for God's sake. They were quite into it, and the rest of the table was actually having a laugh and egging them on. Something neither appreciated, as they saw it as stealing their moment, quote-unquote. Those are Tim's words, by the way, before you think he is an innocent bystander in all of this. After their love session, they converse with each other in whispers away from the table before writing something on a piece of paper and handing it to me. In short, they want to make checks to find the Inquisitor's seal and then bluff the fleet command above the planet to exterminatus the planet whilst I get away on the gunship. They wanted to roll for all of this there and then without the other players knowing what they were rolling for. I asked why they wanted to do this by writing back to them and was informed that they would explain later. Now, I know I should have said no, but I was sensing an epic story in the making, so I rolled with it. They rolled, and lo and behold, they succeeded. The Inquisitorial Rosette was only given to the party to bypass Imperial protocols, but they shouldn't have been able to call down an exterminatus strike. That is only for the highest level of Imperial authority. They managed, however, to convince the fleet that it was actually Inquisitor Rail who was giving this order before leaving the planet. I go on with the session and cut back to the trio. They are pissed. In real life too. The Mordian relays his suspicions to the party and they fight their way out, swearing all the time, to the heretic's own shuttle, blasting foes apart as they go. Eventually, they get on the shuttle before pulling it away and into orbit, just as the first lances of Exterminatus slam into the planet's surface. 12 billion people dead for one demon host. Job done, I guess. On their shuttle, the trio are running out of power and air. The shuttle is not built for void flight at all. They succeed in a lot of engineering checks to keep the hunk of metal from killing them in minutes in space, but eventually they are all literally drifting through space with no power, slowly freezing to death. Inquisitor Rail, on hearing of the Exterminatus, heads to the fleet, where Teresa and Tim are, and get this, they are giving the workers on the ship a speech about equality and workers' rights. Oh my god. They even have started to set up a union to present the Inquisitor with some ultimatums, quote unquote. Oh my dear lord. This is going to go so poorly. Now, I will be honest. The trio and I knew about the 40k lore extensively. These two were relative newbies. So when Rail did turn up, and all of their new converts, quote unquote, immediately got to their knees, it was quite a nice surprise to see the shock on Teresa and Tim's faces. I wanted to give them an opportunity to climb down. And to be fair, they still could have gotten out of this with their lives if they had made a decent case. After all, this guy is an Inquisitor. If they told the Inquisitor the demon host was actually there and had begun to spread its taint to the rest of the world, maybe he would have gone along with it. Maybe. Instead, they told the Inquisitor that they wanted the demon host dead, but also that the world had no human or workers' rights, and that their equality laws were simply not up to snuff. They said they obliterated it to make sure that a message would be sent. A new order was in the offing. Dude, these guys are idiots. These guys are beyond fucking morons. You're saying to the guy in the Neo Third Reich, you know, jumpsuit and with guns strapped to him and a black trench coat, you're giving him this spiel, really? Rail simply turned to them after hearing that they had annihilated billions and his best strike team just to push their own agenda and take down one Chaos Warband, and said, "Did you just say, looks disgusted, workers' rights?" Before the dynamic duo can respond, he shoots Tim between the eyes, killing him instantly with his Volkite melter pistol. He then mind flays Teresa. I let her try to resist. Nope. And takes the truth from her mind by simply looking at her. He then makes her look at her partner's writhing, twitching body and tells her, "You did this. Know before you spend an eternity in agony. You did this." And then slams her soul into the stasis chamber within the Tesseract cube on his belt, there to think on her actions for all eternity as her soulless body crumples to the floor. Jesus, that is so dark. Oh my god. And that is how Tim and Teresa got up and left the session. No shit. Swearing about us being incels and not being able to handle an actual couple who were actually happy. Alrighty then. I love this guy. Rail in the game looked for the distress beacons on any who could have left the planet. Found the team of Trio, brought them in, threw them in the brig for 6 months for being complete idiots and almost getting killed. This is how we ended the first session, and I deducted some accrued experience points from the players for being such idiots and they're representing their time in the brig. As much as this seems like a cool story, the trio were actually ready to walk away halfway through this mission. It was that bad and awkward an atmosphere. I can say, though, that I rolled for all of Inquisitor Rail's actions, and so to me, 40k itself took out the trash and self-policed. It remains one of the most beautifully meta moments I've ever had in this hobby. I loved it. This was the grim, dark, John Blanche-style 40k doing what it does best, being mentally dark, hilarious, but also extremely serious when it needs to be. Cheers, North, Alex. That's awesome. The fact that you were rolling for all of those things that the Inquisitor was doing makes it so much better as well. Yeah, as you said, it's literally like the 40k setting has come down and gone, nope, goodbye. Did you say workers' rights? That just annihilates them. I love it. Oh my god. More of these, please. I love these. I love these stories. Anyway, thank you very much for tuning into Hobby Nightmares. I will be back tomorrow where we'll be talking about my beloved Grey Knights and how they could be better in the lore. And I have a little bit of a rant to talk about that one as well. But if you want to buy any more stuff, make sure you go to Composite Games, as I said earlier. I love you all a long time. Please tune in tomorrow to that lore video. It will be a bit ranty, but it'll also be quite funny when I talk about an army that I actually like. We're also going to do Space Wolves next week. Just a little sneak preview there, where I might just be turning over a few tables. Love you. Speak to you later. Have a good one. Bye.